I'd survived 23 years by keeping my head down, and my heart locked up, so launching myself at Jacob Steele in the middle of a crowded restaurant, and saying loud enough for everyone to hear, "Baby," I thought we agreed. No work talk during date night. Went against every instinct that had kept me breathing. But those three men circling Jake's table weren't here for a business meeting, and my gut, honed by years of dodging danger in foster homes and back alleys, was screaming that if I didn't act now, someone was leaving in a body bag. What I didn't expect was the way Jake's hand would instinctively catch my waist, or how the assassins would memorize my face before melting back into the shadows. A promise that this wasn't over. Hey, welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. I worked Thursday nights at Ascent, an upscale restaurant where the tips were good and the customers usually left me alone. The kind of place where you could smell money in the air-conditioned perfection and pretension cost extra. Jacob Steele had been my regular for 3 months. Same table by the window, same time at 8:30, always polite in that effortless way rich people had when they didn't have to try. He tipped well but not obscenely. Dressed nice but not flashy, tailored shirts, expensive watches that didn't scream for attention. I caught him watching me sometimes, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't find the alpha attractive. Dark hair that was always slightly messy, sharp jawline, eyes that actually focused when you talked. But I kept it professional. Harmless flirting, nothing serious. I'd learned a long time ago not to get attached to anything I couldn't carry in a backpack. That Thursday night felt different the moment he walked in. Jake was his usual calm self, greeting me with that small smile that made something flutter stupidly in my chest. Ordering his usual ribeye, medium rare, no sides. But I noticed what he didn't. 3 men scattered across the restaurant, too coordinated to be coincidence. The way they were positioned, covering exits, keeping sight lines on Jake's table. The scarred one kept checking his watch like he was waiting for a signal. The younger guy by the kitchen had his jacket buttoned despite the warmth, hand hovering near his hip in a way that made my instincts scream gun. I'd seen this before, back when I was bouncing between group homes and sketchy neighborhoods where you learned to read a room or you didn't survive. This was a setup. A hit. The scarred one started walking toward Jake's table, that practiced friendly expression plastered on his face, and my body made a decision my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I abandoned my tray and slid into Jake's booth, draping myself across his lap with the kind of familiarity that came from months of dating, not months of serving him overpriced steaks. His body went rigid beneath me, muscles tensing, but I didn't give him time to question it. "Baby, I thought we agreed. No work talk during date night." I said it loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Then I leaned in close, lips brushing his ear, and dropped my voice to a whisper. "Play along. You're in danger." For a split second, Jake didn't move. Then his hand caught my waist, pure alpha reflex, and I felt the exact moment he saw what I'd seen. His entire body changed, going from confused to alert in a heartbeat. The scarred man stopped a few feet away, eyes narrowing as he reassessed the situation. Up close, he was even more dangerous looking, cold eyes, a presence that made my Omega instincts scream run. For a horrible moment, I thought he was going to call our bluff, that he'd pull whatever weapon he was hiding and end both of us right there. Then Jake's voice dropped into something possessive and convincing, his hand tightening on my waist. "Sorry, gentlemen. My partner and I would like some privacy." The scarred man's smile widened, not fooled, but intrigued, calculating. He exchanged glances with his companions, and they backed off. They melted into the crowd, but the scarred one locked eyes with me one last time before disappearing toward the exit. That look promised I'd regret this. My heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest, and I was suddenly aware that I was still sitting in Jake's lap, his hand still on my waist, his scent, cedar and smoke, filling my lungs. "How do you know those men?" Jake's voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the edge underneath. "You're welcome." I cut him off, sliding out of the booth with more grace than I felt. My hands were shaking, so I shoved them in my apron pockets. "And you might want to reconsider your dinner plans. Those guys weren't here for the ambience." "Dennis," he started to stand, and the use of my actual name threw me off balance. "I have to get back to work. Enjoy your steak." I made it 3 steps before my manager intercepted me with an expression that said I was about to have a very bad time. "My office. Now." The write-up took 10 minutes. Gerald lectured me about inappropriate conduct with customers, while I nodded and pretended to care. I didn't tell him about the men with guns and murder in their eyes. Gerald wouldn't have believed me anyway. I finished my shift on autopilot, checking tables and delivering orders while my mind raced. Jake left 20 minutes later, his food barely touched, and the relief I felt watching him walk out safely warred with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or concern. By the time I clocked out at midnight, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about the whole thing. Go home to my tiny apartment, sleep it off, show up tomorrow like nothing happened. Then I walked to the parking lot. The moment I saw them, every survival instinct I'd ever honed started screaming. The scarred man and another enforcer were waiting by my beat-up Honda. There was no pretense now, no fake smiles, just two predators who'd found their prey. I was grabbed before I could scream. A hand clamped over my mouth with bruising force, another arm hooking around my waist and lifting me off my feet. The smell of cigarettes and cheap cologne flooded my senses as I was dragged toward a black van. I thrashed, kicking backward, trying to bite the hand over my mouth, but the scarred man just laughed. A low, ugly sound that promised pain. Then gunshots cracked through the air. Everything became chaos. The hand on my mouth released as my captor jerked backward. Someone was shouting orders. More gunfire. I was yanked sideways, pulled behind a car by hands that were somehow both gentle and urgent, and suddenly I was crouched on the pavement, ears ringing, heart slamming against my ribs. Jake was there. He was crouched in front of me, hands on my shoulders, eyes wild with fear and fury. His scent was everywhere, overwhelming, cutting through the smell of gunpowder and fear. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, urgent, hands running over my arms like he was checking for injuries. "Dennis, look at me. Are you hurt?" I couldn't form words, could only shake my head while my body tried to remember how to breathe. More footsteps. A woman appeared, tall, sharp-eyed, beta by the neutral scent. Gun still in hand, talking rapidly into an earpiece. "Perimeter secure. 2 hostiles down, 1 fled. We need to move now." Jake's hands were still on me, steadier than mine could ever be. "Okay, we're going." He started to pull back, but the woman cut in, voice clipped. "Not just you. Him too. They've seen his face, steel. He's marked now." The words took a moment to land. When they did, my stomach dropped. Jake turned to me, and there was something in his expression I'd never seen before. Guilt, determination, apology all mixed together. "You can't go home. They know who you are now. You're coming with me." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him I'd been taking care of myself for 23 years, that I didn't need some alpha I barely knew making decisions about my life. But the scarred man's smile flashed through my mind, that promise of pain, of consequences. My voice came out smaller than I'd liked. "What did I just walk into?" Jake's jaw tightened. "I'll explain everything. But right now, I need you to trust me." The woman, Grace, Jake called her when he gestured toward the car, was already moving toward a sleek black vehicle. "We need to move. Now." Jake's hand extended toward me, palm up. An offer. A lifeline. Maybe a mistake. I took it. His fingers closed around mine. Warm, solid, real. And I let a stranger lead me away from the only life I knew, into a car that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Away from my apartment and my job and everything familiar. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of my Honda still sitting there, driver's side door hanging open like a mouth caught mid-scream. Everything I owned fit in that car. My whole life packed into a trunk and back seat. I was leaving it all behind because I'd decided to play hero for an alpha I barely knew. The car accelerated into the night, and I didn't look back. The drive to Jake's place was a blur of city lights and silence. Grace drove with focused intensity that made asking questions feel impossible, and Jake sat beside me in the back seat, his hand still wrapped around mine like he was afraid I'd bolt the moment he let go. My mind kept replaying what had happened in the parking lot over and over again by the time we pulled into an underground parking garage. Exhaustion was pulling at my edges. Jake guided me into an elevator with a gentle hand on my lower back. Grace disappeared somewhere between the car and the elevator, murmuring about securing the perimeter. The elevator doors opened directly into Jake's penthouse. He showed me to a guest room, promised we'd talk in the morning, and left me alone with my racing thoughts and borrowed clothes that smelled like expensive detergent. I didn't think I'd sleep, but apparently, adrenaline crashes are a real thing. I woke up in a bedroom bigger than my entire apartment, disoriented until memory slammed back. The parking lot, the guns, Jake's hand in mine. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and I was surrounded by minimalist luxury that screamed money I'd never understand. A note sat on the nightstand in clean, precise handwriting. "You're safe. Come out when you're ready. Jay." I stared at it for a long moment, trying to decide if that was true. Eventually, my bladder made the decision for me. I followed the smell of coffee and found Jake in his kitchen, looking more normal than I'd ever seen him. Barefoot, gray sweatpants and an old university t-shirt. His hair was still damp from a shower, curling slightly at the ends, and he was humming something off-key while messing with an espresso machine that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. He glanced up when I appeared, and something in his expression softened. "Morning. Coffee? Is that even a question?" He smiled, small, genuine, and gestured to a stool at the kitchen island. "How do you take it?" "Black. 2 sugars." Jake set a mug in front of me and slid a plate of toast across the counter like this was normal. Like I hadn't just upended both our lives. I took a sip of coffee, perfect, annoyingly, and studied him. "So, you going to tell me what the hell is going on? Or are we just going to pretend last night didn't happen?" Before Jake could answer, the elevator chimed. Grace stepped out, looking exactly as sharp and professional as she had last night. She nodded at Jake, then turned those assessing eyes on me. "We need to talk. About your situation." "My situation?" I repeated flatly. Grace's expression didn't change. "All business. You can't leave without security. Those men will be looking for you. You're a witness now, and worse, they think you're his lover." She gestured at Jake. "That makes you valuable, either as leverage or as a loose end." I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. "This is insane. It's reality. You inserted yourself into a dangerous situation, and now there are consequences." The laughter died in my throat. She was dead serious. I turned to Jake, anger building hot in my chest. "Who the hell are you really? Why were those men after you? What did I just walk into?" Jake set his coffee down, jaw tight. "It's complicated. Uncomplicated. I will. Promise. But right now, I need you to stay put and stay safe." "Stay put." I stood, the stool scraping loudly. "You mean stay locked up in your fancy penthouse like some damsel who needs protecting? That's not what I've survived 23 years on my own. I don't need some alpha I barely know making decisions about my life." Something in Jake's calm exterior cracked. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding through. "You barely know me? You threw yourself at armed men for me. You saved my life without thinking twice. So forgive me if I'm trying to return the favor. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I." His voice rose to match mine, and suddenly we were both standing, the kitchen island the only thing between us. "You think I wanted you caught up in this? You think I wanted to drag someone innocent into my mess? Then tell me what the mess is." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Jake's jaw worked, like he was physically chewing on the words. Finally, he said, "I'm not just a regular customer, Dennis. My name is Jacob Steele. I run Volkov Industries." The name clicked, magazine covers at grocery checkouts, business articles I'd skimmed. This wasn't just some wealthy guy. This was that Jacob Steele, billionaire, tech mogul. "Okay, so you're rich. Congratulations. That still doesn't explain why people want you dead. It's not that simple." "Then make it simple." But he didn't. He went quiet, that careful mask sliding back into place, and I knew I wasn't getting more out of him. "Not yet." Grace cleared her throat. "I'll have your things collected from your apartment. Anything you need, make a list." "I'm not staying here," I said, even though we all knew it was a lie. "You are," Jake said quietly. "At least until we figure this out." I wanted to argue, wanted to storm out and prove I didn't need anyone. But the scarred man's smile flashed through my mind, and I knew Jake was right. Couldn't go home, couldn't go back to work, couldn't go back to my life, because of one stupid, impulsive decision. For 2 days, I was losing my mind staying put in the penthouse. Jake went to work but came back early, checking on me like he thought I might vanish. His housekeeper, Rosa, a sweet elderly Omega, treated me like family, bringing homemade empanadas and asking if I needed anything. She didn't ask questions, just accepted my presence like Jake brought home strays all the time. I was restless, caged, and increasingly angry that Jake still wouldn't give me the full story. On the 3rd morning, Jake's publicist showed up. Christian swept into the penthouse, tablet in hand, and barely glanced at me before launching into rapid-fire conversation with Jake. Then he turned the tablet toward me, and my stomach dropped. Photos from the restaurant. Dozens of them. Me in Jake's lap, Jake's hand on my waist. The way we'd looked at each other. Headlines screamed secret romance and billionaire's mystery lover. And who is Jacob Steele's Omega? My face was everywhere. Christian looked at me like I was a problem to solve. This is actually perfect. We can use this. Jake and Christian argued in hushed tones while I stared at my own face trending on social media. Finally, Jake turned to me, expression grim. They think you're my lover now. If we deny it, they'll know it was an act. And they'll kill you for being a witness instead of leverage. We have to make this look real. Christian slid a contract across the table. My voice came out hollow. You want me to fake date you? I want you to stay alive, Jake said quietly. I looked up at him. This stranger, this billionaire who'd somehow become the center of my imploding life, and laughed. Because what else was there to do? Christian insisted we practice. Coached us through standing together, sitting together, walking together, critiquing every movement like we were actors who couldn't sell a scene. Closer. You're supposed to be lovers, not strangers at a bus stop. Jake stepped closer, his hand finding my lower back. Tentative. Careful. I could feel the heat radiating off him. Smell that cedar and smoke scent that was becoming dangerously familiar. Good. And you, Christian turned to me. Try not to look like you're being held hostage. The sessions were awkward, but between them, when it was just us, something shifted. Jake made breakfast in worn sweatpants, humming off-key. Left notes on the counter when he had to leave early for meetings. Stupid little things that shouldn't have mattered but somehow did. Had to step out. Here's fresh coffee and Rose's bringing lunch. Don't try to escape, Grace is watching. Jay. The notes made me smile and I hated that they did. Because it meant my defenses were cracking. Christian insisted we needed to be seen together. So Jake took me shopping with adequate security details shadowing us from every corner and insisted on buying me clothes that actually fit. You don't have to do this, I said, uncomfortable. I know. He pulled out a dark green Henley and held it up against me. This would look good on you. I let him buy the clothes. Let him steer me toward a cafe afterward where paparazzi just happened to be positioned perfectly. We sat outside, and Jake ordered for both of us. Remembered my coffee order. Added the pastry I'd been eyeing but hadn't mentioned. You're good at this, I said, watching him across the small table. Making it look real. Something flickered across his face. Maybe I'm not pretending as much as you think. Before I could process that, he said something dry about the cafe's pretentious menu, and I laughed, genuinely laughed, and the cameras caught it. Made it look like we were just two people falling for each other, instead of two people playing roles we hadn't auditioned for. The worst part? Sitting there with Jake, watching him smile at something I said, I realized the performance was getting easier. Too easy. I was starting to like him. Really like him. The way he listened when I talked, actually listened. How he never made me feel stupid for not understanding his world. The careful way he touched me, even in private, like he was afraid of pushing too far. How his eyes softened when he looked at me, and I couldn't tell anymore what was real and what was for show. And the fact that our lives were still in danger was something I still couldn't fully settle with. I found him in his office at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep myself. The door was cracked open, light spilling into the dark hallway. Jake sat at his desk, staring at a photo in his hands. Even from the doorway, I could see the grief carved into his features. Raw and unguarded in a way I'd never seen. I should have left. Instead, I walked in and sat down across from him. He looked up, startled, then turned the photo so I could see. A young Omega boy with dark curls and a bright smile. Maybe 12 or 13. He had Jake's eyes. My brother, Eli. He was 14 when they took him. I didn't ask who they were. Just waited. Traffickers. The Crimson Chain. He set the photo down carefully. 3 years ago, I was working 18-hour days trying to build my company. Eli stayed with our grandmother because I thought he'd be safer there. I was wrong. The grief in his voice was suffocating. By the time I realized something was wrong, he was gone. I spent every resource searching. 6 months ago, I finally had enough evidence to give the feds. We dismantled their entire network. Hundreds arrested. That's why they're after you, I whispered. Revenge. Jake nodded. I took everything from them. Now they want to return the favor. Did you ever find him? The silence was answer enough. Something in my chest cracked. You can't save everyone, Jake. Trust me, I've tried. He looked at me then, and I felt exposed. Like he was seeing past the sarcasm to the scared kid I'd spent years hiding. Is that what you were doing that night? At the restaurant? Trying to save someone? I don't know. Maybe. I just saw what was coming, and I couldn't watch it happen. We sat in comfortable silence after that, and something shifted between us. Something real beneath all the performance and pretense. Wow, you've made it this far. If you're enjoying the story and still haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It means a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. Alright, let's get back to the story. Then came the gallery opening Christian had scheduled us to attend. I was getting better at playing my part. Standing close to Jake, laughing at the right moments, accepting champagne like I belonged. Jake's hand was warm on my lower back, grounding me. Then I saw him, Raven, standing near a sculpture, looking older, harder, but I'd recognize those eyes anywhere. We'd shared a group home for 2 years, survived caseworkers and predatory foster parents together, aged out at 18 and lost touch. He caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "We need to talk." Panic seized my chest. Jake felt me tense immediately. "What's wrong?" "Someone I know. From before. We need to leave." Jake didn't ask questions, just started guiding me toward the exit. We were halfway to the door when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. They know about the group home. Get out while you can. My blood ran cold. I waited until Jake left for meetings the next morning, then slipped out past Grace with a muttered excuse about needing air. Raven had texted an address, some dingy coffee shop in a part of the city I recognized. He was already there, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. Old habits. "You've got 5 minutes. Then I'm gone." "You need more than 5 minutes for this." Raven leaned forward, voice dropping. "I work for them now. The Crimson Chain. Low-level stuff, information gathering. It pays better than anything else I qualified for." My stomach twisted. "You're working for traffickers." "I'm surviving. Same as you. Same as we always have." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because someone recognized you. From the group home." He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of me and Jake at that cafe, laughing. "Screenshotted from some gossip site. They're digging into your past, Dennis. Looking for leverage against Steele." The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. Yet. But they're going to find out anyway. The group home wasn't what we thought it was." I stiffened at that, and Raven continued. "It was a front. The Crimson Chain funded it. Used it to identify vulnerable Omegas for their network. We both aged out before they could process us. Me because I'm a beta, you because you were too much trouble. Too wild. Too likely to run or fight back. Jesus. There might be records. Documentation. Proof that you were flagged. Selected for processing." Raven's expression was grim. "If they find those records, they'll make it look like you were always part of this world. Like you're working with them now to get close to Steele." I felt dirty. Contaminated. Like my entire life had been poisoned by something I didn't even know existed. "Why are you warning me? Why risk yourself?" "Because we survived that place together. And because you're the only person from back then who didn't look at me like I was already garbage." Raven stood, dropping cash on the table. "Get out, Dennis. Disappear before they use you to destroy him." He left before I could respond. I made it back to the penthouse on autopilot, Grace's disapproving stare barely registering. Jake was already home, earlier than expected, and the moment I walked in, his eyes locked on me. "Where were you?" "Not angry. Concerned." "Out." I moved toward the guest room, but Jake stepped into my path. "Dennis. What happened?" "Nothing. I just needed air." "You're shaking." His hand reached for me and I flinched back. Something in his expression cracked. "Talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." But my voice broke on the last word. "Dennis." The group home was a front. The words exploded out of me. The place I grew up? It was funded by the Crimson Chain. They used it to identify Omegas for trafficking. I was selected, Jake. There are records somewhere proving I was flagged for their network, and now they're going to use that against you. The silence was suffocating. "I thought I'd helped you," I continued, voice dropping to something hollow. "Thought I'd actually saved you that night, even if I put myself in danger. But now I'm not a hero. I'm a liability. A weak link. I'm contaminated by association with the same people who took your brother. They're going to use me to destroy you." Jake pulled me into his arms before I could finish. Just held me. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer empty reassurances. His scent, cedar and smoke, surrounded me, and for the first time in my life, I let myself feel safe. You're not tainted, Jake said quietly, fiercely. You survived. That's what you are. A survivor. They're going to use me against you. They can't use you against me. I'm not letting you go, Dennis. Not because of this. Not because of anything. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. That night, my heat hit. I felt it building all evening. The restlessness, the hypersensitivity to Jake's scent. The way my body temperature spiked. Stress, proximity to an alpha I was attracted to, emotional breakdown, it was a perfect storm. By midnight, I was locked in the guest room, mortified and miserable as the first real waves hit. I'd been on suppressants for years, hadn't had a proper heat since I was 19. I heard Jake's footsteps in the hallway. Then his voice, rough with concern. Dennis, go away. Are you? He stopped, scenting the air. Okay, do you need me to call someone? An Omega clinic. Just go away, Jake. Silence. Then, I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here, outside your door. If you need anything, you tell me. Okay? He stayed. Talked to me through the door. Told me stories about growing up with Eli, about stupid mistakes building his company, about Rosa teaching him to cook empanadas. Kept me distracted when the pain got bad. Made sure I drank water, passed bottles through without looking. Never once tried to come in. 2 days. By the time it finally broke, I was exhausted, dehydrated, and emotionally raw. I opened the door. Jake was asleep on the floor, back against the wall, phone still clutched in one hand. His hair was a mess, shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He'd stayed. The entire time he'd stayed. Something in my chest cracked wide open. Something I'd kept locked up for 23 years. But looking at Jake, exhausted because he'd refused to leave me alone, I couldn't keep it locked anymore. This wasn't fake. Not for me. Maybe it never had been. Things shifted after my heat. Jake was different. More protective. More openly affectionate even when we were alone. He started scenting me without realizing it. Alpha instincts he wasn't trying to hide anymore. We were navigating something real now, but neither of us was saying it out loud. Then Grace walked in one morning with an expression that made my stomach drop. There's been an incident. Your friend, Raven. I already knew. He's dead. Found in an alley 2 blocks from where you met him. Beaten. They wanted to send a message. The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the floor. This is what happens to people who help me. I shut down after that. Stopped talking unless necessary. Stopped sleeping. Started picking fights with Jake. Snapping when he asked if I was okay. Pushing away when he tried to touch me. Everyone I cared about left or died. That was the pattern. And Raven had warned me because we'd survived together, and now he was dead because of it. I couldn't let that happen to Jake. Better to push them away first. Better to be alone than to watch them die. Jake tried to reach me, asked what was wrong, why I was pulling away. I gave him nothing, just cold shoulders and cutting remarks designed to make him stop trying. It took 3 days before he snapped. What the hell is wrong with you? Jake's voice was sharp, angry. We were in his office and I just told him I was going back to my apartment, that this arrangement was over. Nothing's wrong. I'm just done playing house. Playing house? Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? We're pretending, remember? For the cameras. None of this is real. You don't believe that. Yes, I do. Liar. You're running. You're scared. So you're pushing me away before I can leave first. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Explain why you're sabotaging this. Why you're trying so hard to make me give up on you. Because everyone gives up eventually. Because I'm disposable, Jake. That's what people like me are. We're temporary. Replaceable. And I'm not going to stick around and watch you figure that out. You're not disposable to me. Raven is dead because he helped me. Your brother is dead because of the same people who are after me now. Everyone I touch gets hurt. And I can't. You saved my life. Jake roared, unraveled and furious. You threw yourself into danger without thinking twice because that's who you are. Dennis, you think you don't know how to love? You've been doing it your whole life. You just never let yourself believe you deserved it back. The words hit like a physical blow. Couldn't breathe. I'm terrified. I whispered, the fight draining out of me. Loving you feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, and I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to stay. Jake crossed the space between us, cupping my face in his hands. Then let me teach you. Let me prove that staying doesn't mean losing. That you can love someone and not watch them leave. Jake! He kissed me. It wasn't gentle or careful. It was desperate, messy, real, all the things we'd been holding back finally spilling over. His hands tangled in my hair, and I grabbed at his shirt, pulling him closer, kissing him back like I was drowning and he was air. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jake pressed his forehead against mine. I'm not going anywhere. No matter how hard you push, I'm not leaving. I wanted to believe him. For the first time in my life, I wanted to believe someone would stay. Jake's phone buzzed during dinner. Rosa had made her empanadas, and we were pretending everything was normal. He glanced at the screen, and I watched his entire body go rigid. What is it? He didn't answer, just turned the phone so I could see. The video showed surveillance footage, me at the restaurant, throwing myself at Jake. Me meeting Raven at that coffee shop. Me walking through the penthouse, unaware I was being watched. They'd been following me for weeks. Then Dmitry Kozlov's voice, smooth and cold. 72 hours, Mr. Steele. Bring your little Omega to me, or I'll take him myself. And everyone he's touched dies first. The video shifted. Live footage. Rosa at a market, picking through vegetables, completely unaware of the camera trained on her. The threat was crystal clear. Jake was already on his phone, barking orders at Grace, demanding increased security. But I couldn't hear any of it past the roaring in my ears. This was my fault. All of it. Raven was dead. Rosa was in danger. Jake was being threatened. Because I decided to play hero one Thursday night. We have to give them what they want, I said quietly. Jake's head snapped toward me. Absolutely not. They'll kill Rosa. They'll kill everyone. Because of me. No, we're not doing this. We're gonna end this, Dennis. Together. But looking at Rosa's face on that screen, unaware and vulnerable, I knew what I had to do. Even if it meant losing everything. Jake wanted to send me away. Somewhere remote, protected, far from the Crimson Chain's reach. No, I stood my ground in his office. Dennis, this isn't up for debate. You're right. It's not. Running means Rosa dies. Grace dies. Everyone at Ascent who ever smiled at me dies. Dmitry will make examples of them all. I'm not letting that happen. Then what do you suggest? Jake's jaw was tight. We use me as bait. Let Dmitry think he's won. That you're handing me over. But we'll have those federal agents you've been working with embedded at the exchange. They take down the entire operation while Dmitry thinks he's getting his revenge. You're asking me to deliver you to the people who want to hurt us? I'm asking you to trust me. I'm not helpless, Jake. I get to choose how this ends. And I'm choosing to fight. We argued for hours. Jake terrified and trying to hide it behind anger. Me insisting I wasn't some fragile thing that needed protecting. Finally, exhausted and raw, Jake pulled me against his chest. I promise. I buried my face in his shirt, breathing in cedar and smoke. Just don't leave me alone out there. Never. I'm not letting you go, Dennis. Not now. Not ever. The warehouse on the docks smelled like rust and salt water and fear. I walked in alone, hands zip-tied loosely enough that I could slip them if needed, wearing a wire that felt like a target on my chest. The plan was simple. Get Dmitry talking, let him incriminate himself on recording, give the feds time to move into position. Simple. Easy. Nothing could go wrong. Dmitry stood in the center of the space, flanked by the scarred man, Victor, and a dozen armed men. He looked exactly like I'd imagined. Cold eyes, expensive suit, the kind of smile that promised pain. Dennis. He said my name like he owned it. The Omega who started all this trouble because he decided to play hero one Thursday night. I'm good at making bad decisions. Keep him talking. That was the plan. Indeed. He stopped in front of me, reaching out to grip my chin. His touch made my skin crawl. Jacob Steele destroyed my organization for a brother he couldn't save. Poetic, isn't it? That I'll destroy him with an Omega he can't protect. That's when the gunfire started. Too early. The feds were moving too early, and suddenly the warehouse exploded into chaos. Dmitry's men opened fire, bullets ricocheting off metal beams. I dove behind a crate, slipping my zip ties, heart hammering against my ribs. Shouts echoed through the space. Orders barked in Russian, federal agents returning fire. The sharp crack of weapons discharging in the enclosed space making my ears ring. I pressed myself flat against the concrete, trying to make myself as small as possible while chaos erupted around me. A body hit the ground 10 feet away, one of Dmitry's men down. The metallic smell of blood mixed with gunpowder and salt water. Then Victor had me. His arm locked around my throat before I could react, knife pressing against my jugular, and he hauled me upright, using me as a shield. The cold steel bit into my skin, and I felt a warm trickle of blood where the blade pressed too hard. Nobody moves, or the Omega dies. Victor's voice boomed through the warehouse. The gunfire stopped. Federal agents frozen in position, weapons raised but unable to take the shot. Grace was somewhere in the shadows, and I could feel her eyes on us, calculating angles, looking for an opening that didn't exist. Everything suspended in terrible silence, broken only by my harsh breathing and the drip of water from somewhere overhead. Then Jake appeared. He wasn't supposed to be here, was supposed to stay in the getaway car, stay safe. But there he was, stepping into the warehouse through the side entrance, and the look on his face made my blood run cold. This wasn't the careful billionaire or the gentle alpha who'd held me through my heat. This was pure, feral rage. Protective instincts stripped bare and dangerous. His eyes locked on Victor's knife at my throat, and I saw his hands clench into fists so tight his knuckles went white. Let him go. Jake's voice was barely human, more growl than words. I don't think so. Victor's laugh vibrated against my back, and the knife pressed harder. I felt another warm trickle down my neck. Drop your weapons or I open his throat. Touch him again, and I'll tear you apart with my bare hands. Jake took a step forward, and 3 red laser sights immediately appeared on his chest, sniper dots from Victor's backup. Big words for a man with no leverage. Victor's grip tightened, cutting off more of my air. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. They were at a standoff, and I could feel Victor's grip tightening, the knife biting deeper into my skin. Jake's eyes met mine across the warehouse, and I saw the terror he was trying to hide. The helpless fury of someone watching the person they loved about to die. I'd spent my whole life running from moments like this. From vulnerability, from caring enough about someone that losing them would destroy me. But looking at Jake, at the man who'd stayed outside my door during my heat, who'd held me while I fell apart, who'd chosen me over safety again and again, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I was done running. I did what I did best. Something stupidly reckless. I stomped down hard on Victor's instep, felt his grip loosen just enough. In that split second of surprise, I drove my elbow backward into his ribs with everything I had. His breath whooshed out, the knife wavering away from my throat for just an instant, and I dropped low, dead weight, making myself impossible to hold, giving Jake the opening he needed. Jake hit Victor like a freight train, tackling him away from me. They went down hard, Victor's knife skittering across the concrete. I scrambled backward on hands and knees as federal agents swarmed in, converging on the scene from all sides. Dimitri tried to run, but Grace was already there, weapon trained on his chest with an expression that suggested she'd be happy if he gave her an excuse. Down. Everyone down. Federal agents. Dimitri and his men dropped, hands behind their heads. Victor tried to fight Jake, throwing wild punches, but he didn't stand a chance. Not against an alpha protecting his Omega. Jake's fist connected with Victor's jaw once, twice, and by the time Grace pulled Jake off him, Victor was unconscious and bleeding from a broken nose. One of Dimitri's men made a break for the back exit. Grace fired without hesitation, and he went down hard, clutching his leg and screaming. Then it was over. Federal agents flooded the warehouse, reading rights, securing prisoners, calling for backup and medical. Dimitri was hauled away in handcuffs, still smiling that cold smile like this was all a minor inconvenience. Victor was loaded into an ambulance under armed guard, wrists cuffed to the gurney. Jake found me in the chaos, pulled me against him so hard I could barely breathe. His hands were shaking as they ran over me, checking for injuries, finding the shallow cut on my neck and going very still. You weren't supposed to be here, I said against his chest. I know. His voice was rough, broken. I couldn't stay away. Couldn't let you face this alone. Idiot Alpha. Reckless Omega. He pulled back just enough to cup my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. You scared the hell out of me. Yeah, well, I managed a shaky smile. We're even now. I saved you. You saved me. Dennis. I kissed him. Right there in that warehouse, surrounded by federal agents and the wreckage of the Crimson Chains operation. Kissed him like I'd almost lost the chance to do it again. When we finally broke apart, Jake pressed his forehead against mine. Let's go home, he whispered. Home. Not his penthouse. Not my apartment. Home. And for the first time in 23 years, I knew exactly where that was. 2 months later. I still worked at a cent. Jake thought I was insane. He'd offered me positions at Volkov Industries, but I refused. I wasn't going to be a kept Omega. I liked my job, liked the routine, the familiar rhythm of Thursday nights, liked proving I was more than the guy who got saved. But Thursday nights were different now. Jake still came in at 8:30, still requested my section, still ordered the same ribeye. Except now, when he looked at me, there was no pretense. Just warmth and possession and something that made my chest ache in the best way. Gerald had stopped writing me up for inappropriate conduct. After the third time he caught me kissing Jake goodbye. Probably helped that Jake had made a substantial donation to the restaurant scholarship fund. Idiot Alpha. Tonight, I finished my shift at midnight. Jake was waiting in his usual booth, laptop open, working through emails. He looked up when I approached, and that smile, the real one he saved just for me, spread across his face. Ready. I slid into the booth across from him. Tell me about your day. He talked about board meetings and acquisitions. I half listened, mostly just watching him. The way his hands moved when he talked, how his eyes softened whenever they landed on me. You're not listening, he said, amused. I am. You were talking about work. I was talking about Rosa's empanada recipe. Same thing. He laughed. And God, I loved that sound. We went home together to our penthouse because apparently I live there now. I'd officially moved in 3 weeks ago. My beat-up books sat on his pristine shelves, my thrift store mugs in his designer kitchen. But Jake insisted it made the place feel like a home. The Crimson Chain's leadership was in federal prison. The organization collapsed. We were safe. Finally. Jake had started a foundation for Omega youth aging out of foster care. Transitional housing, job training, counseling. He'd asked me to help run it, and I'd said yes. It was messy, hard work. The kids were damaged in ways I recognized too well, defensive, distrustful. But slowly we were making a difference. Giving them tools I'd never had. Therapy helped too. Dr. Martinez was patient with my deflection. Kept pushing until I actually talked about the group home. About Raven. About the fear that loving someone meant losing them. She told me that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to build something new from the broken pieces. I was trying. Some days were harder than others. But I was learning what family actually meant. One Thursday, after my shift, Jake slid a small box across the table instead of his laptop. My heart kicked into overdrive. What's this? Open it. Inside was a simple silver band. No stones, no engraving, just smooth metal. Jake, I know we haven't been together long, and I know you don't believe in traditional dynamics. This isn't about ownership. It's a promise. I want you, every day, for as long as you'll have me. My throat felt tight. You're really bad at this romantic speech thing. I know. He smiled, crooked and genuine. But I mean it, Dennis. I love you, and I want everyone to know it. I looked at the ring, then at Jake. This alpha who'd taught me that love wasn't something to fear. Play along? I whispered, eyes bright with mischief and something deeper. You're in danger of being loved. Jake's smile widened. Finally, I kissed him right there in the restaurant, in front of Gerald and the late-night customers and anyone who cared to watch. Kissed him like I wasn't afraid anymore, like I was choosing to stay instead of run. Because I was. When we finally broke apart, I slid the ring onto my finger. Fit perfectly. Take me home, I said. Jake stood, pulling me with him, his hand warm in mine. Always. We walked out of Ascent together, into the cool night air, toward a future I'd never let myself imagine. One where I wasn't disposable, where love didn't mean losing, where staying was a choice I made every single day. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally home. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.